Hey, John Gilroy here. F5 is a company. It got its name from the Fujita scale, where F5 represents the highest intensity tornado. Well, 2025 here, federal IT is certainly going through a storm. Let's hear what F5 has to say about it. Hit the music, Manny. Welcome to the Federal Tech Podcast, the podcast that connects you to federal technology leaders. My name is John Gilroy, and I will be your moderator. Our guest today is Bill Church. He is the CTO of the aforementioned F5. Bill, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, sir?
Well, maybe your company was prescient. Maybe they knew 20 years ago that there was going to be storms. That they were going to. I think the whole idea behind F5 is, yeah, baby, we'll ride out this storm with you, huh? I mean, it's seen a lot of things over the years, and this boxer's got like a cauliflower ear and a broken nose, and yeah, we've seen it all, man. And we'll ride through this one as well, huh?
Yeah, we've definitely seen a lot. I think it's the company's definitely evolved from when our founders first had their ideas, right? So yeah. Certainly interesting times we live in.
But I think the word here is flexibility, and I think they realize that ain't no stick. You can build on rock, but things are going to change, so you have to have some kind of. I think the word might be flexibility. We used this before, so maybe the title of this is going to be how F5 can help your agency cope in a changing world. That flexibility, and so that's what I want to focus in on what F5 does. Maybe you can give us a little nutshell. People know F5. Maybe give us a nutshell for the novices out there who don't know F5's history and how you can help the government real quickly, please.
Sure. So F5 is a company that produces application delivery solutions. And so what that means for a lot of people is probably load balancing. That's what we're usually known for. However, we handle any sort of feature across the application portfolio. So that could be application security, that could be application enhancement, so making things get to you fast, making things available, making them secure, things like encryption, strong authentication, things along that line, multi-cloud. That's kind of where we live.
Yeah. And it was pretty easy maybe 10, 15 years ago. Server down the hall, Bill gets a cup of coffee, goes down the hall, everything's good. And now a little different world, this whole multi-cloud approach. I went to your website this morning, and it's got a real nice condensed summary of what you do. It's an intelligent front door for your system, intelligent front door for your apps, kind of lets it warm. So let's, so why, and here's the question, this is the why question. So I even worry about an app strategy. Why worry about a federal enterprise app strategy? Are they being attacked? I mean, what's going on in that area?
Yeah, so what we're seeing from our customers is they're constantly under attack. And really, it doesn't matter the application. They're all being exploited or attempted to be exploited in some way by mostly nation states, but also organized crime. There's a ton of data out there for people to get. And that the data that the government holds is very, very interesting for multiple reasons. So we've seen, apps that are, community-facing, customer-facing, citizen-facing are vulnerable just as much as, a Defense Department app might be that's, protecting a multi-billion-dollar weapons program. All of those can provide bits and pieces to help further a nation-state's attack deeper into the network. Going into OPM and getting information about employees could allow you to pivot into getting into defense contractor networks and, resetting passwords, things like that. So none of this data is really unimportant. It's all very important, and it all deserves to be protected in a similar manner.
Is it too much to say, and I've heard this said, that the API is the network? Seems, that's pushing it, huh? But I can see where some people might say that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to find out about, first off, how many APIs are actually in our environments that we're not aware of. We actually have done discovery for our customers where, sitting at the table, they say they know how many APIs they have. And they say, yeah, we have like 100 APIs in our environment. And we'll do an API discovery and find out they have 30,000. I mean, and it's shocking.
Surprise.
And shocking to us as well, because the customer just didn't know. They didn't have visibility into it. So part of the application strategy is the idea that, hey, you got to get a handle on what your applications are. And we built some tools to do that. Some of those tools are free. There's one called the App Study tool that's really good. So if you have a big IP in your environment, you can essentially install this tool, and it'll passively look at your traffic and kind of give you a heads up of what's going on. So those are the types of things that we really need to be more aware of. Is like, what are we protecting? What is in our environment? What don't we know about? Shadow IT is a thing. It's becoming more popular in the government currently. So we might have, systems that are operating on these networks that, may not have gone through the rigorous processes of, onboarding and ensuring that they're patched and that sort of thing. So those systems are operating, and having awareness of that is incredibly critical, because that could be another pivot point for an attacker to get in.
Okay. Write this down. This is the acronym of the day. Well, the answer is, CNAPP, Cloud Native Application Protection Platform. So that's it. Just get that, and then you can go to home early and put your feet up and smoke a cigar, right? I mean,
yeah, let somebody else deal with
it. I mean that's thrown at it and say, hey, we don't know, Bill. Well, we're fine with this, right? Well, it's. I think the situation is just too dynamic. You mentioned shadow IT, but that's just one of the many curveballs that's thrown at network administrators every day, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about the cloud native solutions, they're not bad, right? They provide a service, they provide a function, but they're pretty coarse grained, and they're giving you the minimum it needs to say it's doing a thing, basically, right? And the configurability and the flexibility is just not there. So we found that customers will typically start with that because, hey, it's easy, right? It's a button. I click it, it's enabled. I feel good until I don't, and I find that it's not doing what I think it's doing, or it's not protecting me as much as it should. So then we get a call, and we help the customer provide a solution to them that will further enhance that security solution and the security stack.
So what you're saying, if you look at a federal environment that's multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, repatriation, so the way to manage that maybe is to look at, start off with the applications and find out where it goes from there, which is going to necessarily include data and infrastructure as well. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, so the idea there is that, obviously it's a triage, right? There are some applications that are more important than others. Of course, I said, everything's important. But, the other thing that's pretty important is consistency of managing those infrastructures, right? So you probably have contracts throughout, GCP, Azure, Amazon, right? And you have reasons that you have resources in those environments. If you're using the cloud native tools, they each have their own way of being managed, and they each have their own way of they each have their weaknesses and their strengths. So that inconsistency of applying policy across those environments is kind of a problem. So what we found is, by using something like a multi-cloud aware solution like F5, you're able to have consistency across those environments. So you could essentially have one policy, that goes from cloud to on-prem to far edge, wherever it might need to be. And it's easier to have the visibility and have consistent visibility, I think.
Yeah, there's a podcast in town called Feds at the Edge, and lots of stuff going on at the edge now. And maybe that CNAPP may not cover it. They may not, respond quickly enough. I mean, they may encounter fire. I mean, there's just a whole long list of things that may not be sufficient for that. I wanted to ask you specifically about some use cases showing your rapid change and flexibility. But if you're listening to this and you want to grab Bill or ask more, I think you guys have an event coming up in April, don't you?
We do. So in Tyson's Corner, and we'll probably have the dates available here, but in April, we're going to have our annual federal symposium. And we have talks from customers, we have talks from industry leaders. And it's a good time to get out and, meet with your peers and engage with F5 as well, and our partners.
Yeah. And I think this is like a tasting menu, a 30-minute interview with Bill. We can get some of the mountaintops here, but there are people who are listening to this that may want to get you aside and say, well, here, my friend has this problem, and maybe we can talk about this. And so what I'll do is I will put a link to the event in the show notes, and you can go to federaltechpodcast.com, episode 219, and register right from there. And we'll be promoting this in social media between now and the event. But it's just so much better you're always sitting in the audience, and the person sitting next to you asks a question. You go, well, I never thought of that. Yeah. and then you may have 6 topics, and I don't care. But that's the one topic I really care about, and you go to that one. So I think it's better. And post-COVID, it's back to pre-COVID, more interactions, and I think more authentic interactions.
Definitely missed it for sure.
Well, give me a for instance, or give me a what they say in Missouri, show me. So give me an instance of maybe rapid change and adaptation.
Yeah, I got a couple. So we had a customer who was just a traditional load balancing. It's, hey, we're going to get packets, across a bunch of servers, and we're going to make sure that, if this server dies, we route to that one. So very standard, basic use case. Honestly, anybody can do that. They came to us with a problem. They discovered that their network had been breached by a nation state, and they had limited time to respond, and they needed to deploy a security solution immediately. The luck was on their side, though, because they actually had devices in the environment already that could handle this. And it was simply a matter of just enabling a license. So we were able to secure over 2,000 apps in a week by just enabling a license for a customer. So that's kind of like, that's an easy one, right? That's a SKU, and frankly, we enabled it for them before they even purchased it because that's just the right thing to do. But then we had a customer who had a interesting use case where they're sharing information, multinational information sharing. So they have users in an environment that they don't control, they don't own. And typically, what would happen is when this user comes in this environment to work on the network, they have to be provisioned a credential, and that credentialing process takes a long time. It's a very manual process. They have to be entered into a directory like Active Directory and then set up. But what's neat is we trust these partners, and they have their own directories. They have their own credentials that have been vetted. So instead of doing this manual process, what we're able to do through some of the intellectual property we had was essentially script this whole process where the user goes to the portal with their credential. They enter their credential. We behind the scenes instantly generate the credentials they need in Active Directory, and we call it like a temporal authentication. So the idea is that this account only exists for the period of time this user needs it. They don't know the password; it's passwordless, and then we're able to then authenticate them to this very bespoke application that doesn't know how to do anything else by using this method. And so when the user's done, we terminate the credential, it's gone, and then no one can use it. So that was a thing where they had a very rigid system in place that couldn't be changed, but something in front, that intelligent front door, was able to kind of rewrite the process and make it happen for them.
It's that storm, the F5. It's the storm coming through and floating and understanding and being flexible, because if you're too rigid, those palm trees, they flex. And you don't flex, you're going to be frail and you're going to break. Last year, I got a mandate. I had to say zero trust every 20 seconds. Now the new mandate is AI.
Well, it's only 2 letters now. So much easier.
Yeah. So I walked down to the 7-Eleven. I got to say something about AI and the Slurpees or whatever. So I got to have AI in here. And so, how are you guys using AI, and is it seeing systems better? Is it helping detect, an inventory of APIs, or how are you folks using it, and how is it being applied to help my listeners?
So I'll just say yes, everywhere and always. So we've been using AI or machine learning, for quite a while, especially in our application security solutions and our authentication solutions. However, a lot's changed in the past 2 years, and we're seeing different applications. So some of those are, again, very similar to the application security use cases where we're looking at how users interact with data and how attackers interact with data and adjust policies based on that, right? But then there's the ability to look at API traffic and understand, hey, this is an API, and this is the way you should use the API, and what does that mean, and build policies around that. But then we get into large language models, and our programmable data plane uses something called iRules. And those of you that are familiar with F5 might know what that is, but it's essentially a scripting language that you can use to interact with data on the wire and do basically anything you want with it. One of the negatives of iRules is you have to know what you're doing. You can definitely hurt yourself if you don't know what you're doing. So we've actually trained our own model to generate iRules. So essentially you use natural language to say, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z, spits out an iRule that's validated and ready to go. More importantly, when you inherit a big IP and it's got a bunch of iRules on it, you may not know what those things are doing. So we have the ability to then read those iRules in and then make sense of them in natural language, again, for somebody who may not know, right? So get them up to speed quickly and understand that. So those are some of the things we're doing with that. Of course, we have our analytics and data scientists that are using AI in interesting ways to look at trends across multiple customers, especially in our cloud environments where we see a lot of traffic, and understanding trends on the traffic and not actually looking at the payload itself, but just the interactions, incredibly valuable. So those are some of the things we're doing with that. Now, back on the application security protection. One of the newer solutions we have out now is actually an AI gateway. And what this does is it's got multiple features, but the main point here is that it's protecting essentially the data in the LLM or the large language model from either abuse, so protecting it from a user trying to abuse that maybe it's chatbot or some other thing from being jailbroken and returning data it may not want to or should. And it can also protect users from maybe maybe from data itself. So the data model might be leaking information or might be doing something bad, and protecting users. So those are some of the use cases we're looking at with that right now, and it's a very new thing and it's kind of evolving.
I always look for an excuse to use my radio voice, so I went to your Twitter feed. And it's a great Twitter feed, because the very first thing gave me my radio pitch. It's like, and you can go to Twitter and find out 20 billion malicious attacks blocked. I mean, that's a big number.
Yeah.
I mean, that 20 billion, man. I mean,
yeah.
So my conclusion for this is they're attacking the local donut store. They're attacking the federal government. They're attacking the DOD. And so now we got to wax serious and get all serious here and drink coffee and not talk about silly things. But there's fraud and abuse that's taking place in the federal government, and this is a headline in the newspaper. Okay, we know that. We don't have to repeat ourselves. So I imagine if you can block malicious attacks, you'd be able to help prevent abuse and cloud problems, huh?
Yeah, so there's a lot of ways we can do that. We probably work with partners mostly to handle some of that. So if you look at some of your data protection and DLP solutions, that are suitable for that, the places where they need help, those solutions need help, is getting visibility into the data. And so one of the things we're pretty well known for in the federal space is SSL visibility. So the idea is that we can open up a TLS connection and see inside of that and provide that data to tools that can analyze and look at that data to see what's going on. So one of the big use cases we have is just that. So, doing that is incredibly computationally expensive. And a lot of these solutions can do it on their own. But then what you find out is you have a stack of these solutions. So you've got, essentially, 5 or 6 devices that all want to see this data. And each one of them is trying to break open this SSL connection to see it, the data, and then re-encrypt it and send it on to the next thing. So one of the things we've done is created what we call a service chain. So essentially we break the connection once, send it through the stack of whatever wants to see it, or route it to the thing that's most appropriate based on some kind of criteria, and then we re-encrypt it and send it on its way. So, in that, we've seen a lot of success where we've been able to detect some of these attacks that weren't possible before because they were encrypted. We're able to flag on, sensitive information. So, looking for certain keywords or, things that they might not want to leave the network, being able to stop that and alert on it. So that we find a lot of success there.
I was at your website, and I've been reading all the different things you folks do. I mean, it says I used to have a handle on F5. Now I got maybe a corner of what F5 can do here. And I'm just thinking, if I was in the position of an enterprise designing a system for 2025, and I can see that tsunami, that hurricane down the road, it's like every September we get hit with this, or this happens every April. So from your perspective, I mean, you've been in business many years, you understand a lot of these issues and problems with scale. And so what is best practice as far as dealing with a scattered architecture and trying to make sure you can control and understand where the APIs are? I mean, is there a best approach, looking forward to design a system to maybe reduce some of these problems?
Well, I think we touched on it a little bit before, but consistency, right? Consistency throughout the environment, and being able to route, control, and protect data. So I think having a unified tool that can do that and can operate that way in any environment, be it containerized, cloud, on-prem, wherever it might be, on a sub somewhere underneath the ocean, right? I mean, you should be able to operate with these things all in the same way. And then getting that data back into a way that you can, visualize what's happening, right? So having some true application visibility and understanding, what are these apps, where are they, and what are they doing, is incredibly important. And I think, every environment has tools that do that, but again, they all do it in different ways, and they all have their own ways of, disseminating that data. So I think that's the key to me is it doesn't have to be our tool, but you should have something that does that, and it should do that across anything.
I think if you're charged with maybe designing a system that's going to be scalable in the future and still be responsible to be compliant, maybe you should head to your event in April and just listen to a couple of people. And I always like to grab people, take them aside, and up on stage you said A, B, and C, but let's talk about X, Y, and Z, and how would this happen? And it's just post-COVID face-to-face. It just gives a whole lot more flexibility. So are you going to be speaking at this event, Bill?
Yeah, I'll have a couple of opportunities to speak.
Good.
And I love solving weird problems. So, if you got some kind of a weird thing that's nagging at you that you can't figure out how to fix, I love to give it a shot. So got any crazy ideas, bring forward.
Probably not going to get an email, but it could be go face to face. I think that's
that'll be the best way.
Yeah, it's right in Tyson's corner there. So again, I'll put that event in the show notes at Federal Tech Podcast episode 219. And Bill, have any parting words for all the storms we're going through, the hurricanes in 2025? Keep calm, drink coffee. What's your advice?
Keep calm, carry on. Change is opportunity. So we'll get through this. But administration change happens, every 4 years, and this one's a little different, but it's change, right?
Yeah. This is an audio podcast, but hey, Bill's got gray hair. I got gray hair. We've gone through storms, man.
I'm 25 years old. I don't even know how I got there.
You just got to college. All you know is, the football team. No, but we've seen problems like this, and you ride through the storm and good things happen as long as you don't get too emotional about this, and the basic principles apply, and F5 has been around a while, and their basic principles apply is efficient network management and manage your APIs, and so that's it's a calming word at the end of this interesting interview. You have been listening to the Federal Tech Podcast with John Gilroy. I'd like to thank my guest, Bill Church. He is the CTO of F5.